In years when other beekeepers get 10 to 15, you get around 40.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and sometimes even more.
Okay. Здравейте, приятели! Днес сме се събрали с Roger White from Superbee-Buckfast Queen Bees from Cyprus. I know you that you're one of the Buckfast bee breeders from the time from Brother Adam. So tell me how you actually started.
With beekeeping?
With beekeeping and how you found the Buckfast bee.
So I was born in Africa, nowadays it's Zimbabwe, and I started becoming interested in bees when I was about 6 or 7, okay, when I got stung by a lot of African bees, right? And I was always interested in insects and entomology in general, and we managed to catch some swarms in Zimbabwe, and we had them in big boxes, but they built up tremendous colonies. I mean, the populations were just unbelievable, and they were getting a lot of honey. And then my father retired, and we went to the UK. And I was still interested in beekeeping, and I joined the Royal Air Force and was posted to Cyprus, and met my wife there and got married. And I decided that I would have to have a second job as well when I left the RAF. So I was discharged in 1980 from the Royal Air Force, and of course, I was meeting some beekeepers along the way, and I met a guy. I was working in a hotel, and an apple grower from Ireland came to the hotel. His name was Sammy McNeese, and he also had bees for his apple trees. And he was in contact with Dr. John Corr, who used to be the UK agent for Brother Adam. And at that time, the bees were being imported from weavers in Texas into the UK. And then in 1986, I managed to get 2 queens from him. And these were actually the last queens that were ever exported from Texas to Europe, okay, because of Africanized bees. And it was a real eye-opener, because they were in a four-frame nuke, a Langstroth nuke, and in the spring, on the orange blossom, the hive eventually gave in April about 100 kilos of honey. So this was a real eye-opener, because up to then we only had Cypriot bees, and because the Cypriot bee was kept in mud tubes for thousands of years, and the only way to multiply the colonies was through swarming, so they have a big problem with swarming. But they're very tough bees, but also very aggressive, and very low production because there was no selection done. So I decided that we have to go forward with Buckfast if we want to make it profitable and enjoyable, because you don't have to get dressed up like an astronaut that's going to Mars or to the moon. Okay?
40 degrees.
Yeah, and 40 degrees. Okay, when you're 25, it's okay, but when you're getting older, it's not so funny. Okay, it can have serious consequences. Anyway, then I met another person in the hotel I was working in. I told them that I'm a beekeeper. He was an Israeli, okay, and I said to him, do you know any Israeli beekeepers? And because there's no internet or anything like this, huh? And he left, and then after some months, a letter came from this person. I said, I know you probably meet a lot of people that make promises and that, and then you never hear from them again, but this person is is has a good name in beekeeping, and he keeps Buckfast bees. So I was brought into contact with Yoram Paz in Israel, okay, who really helped me a lot in my beekeeping career. And he brought me into contact with Nathan Merin, who used to cooperate with Brother Adam, because they used to produce the F1s in Israel with Nathan Merin. But the time I met him, he was like 86, okay, but he was keeping 600 beehives on his own. And of course, after a couple of years, he died, and Yoram had his company, Emek Hefa, and they were producing a lot of honey. And we exchanged information and some genetic material, and it went on from there. So then we started getting into contact with bee breeders in Europe, like Paul Jungels, Manfred Deichmann, Kelt Brandstrup, and others. And more recently, we had good contacts with Ameland, with Jones de Bork, and generally we have a good relationship with a lot of people in Europe. We don't produce much honey anymore because of the problems with the imported honey into Europe, and some problems that we had in the past with payments for honey. And so for the last 15 years, we've been concentrating on producing F1 open-mated queens, breeder queens, and selling queen cells.
Yeah, but
there's a long list to get queens and queen cells in the spring.
Yeah. Why do you think in Europe the honey prices are so low? Is it because importation for places like China?
Yes.
Or is it because adulterated honey and fake honey?
Both of them.
Both of them.
Yeah. Once imported honey gets into the system and is packed in a European country and is exported to another European country, the importing country is not allowed to check about honey quality. Supposedly that was done in the country that the packing was done. Okay, so once it gets into Europe, it's a free game. It's a free market. There's no checks. Okay, but there are moves afoot that will change this situation, because if they don't change it, it's just going to make people go bankrupt and make commercial beekeeping unprofitable, and people have to stop, which is could have very bad effects on the environment and on unemployment, because the last estimates are that beekeeping to the European economy is worth 22 billion a year, euros. So it's quite a significant amount, you know. People that are producing monofloral types of honey, like heather honey, are not affected by this so much, okay? Or thyme honey in Greece. But the point is, because a lot of people are sort of pushed economically by everything going on, by fuel prices and electricity prices and all this, if they go to the supermarket and they can see a monofloral honey it's being sold at 12 or 15 euros, and then they see the imported stuff at 4 euros and 4.50, they might think, you know, I'm going to take the 4.50, but they don't realize what it is.
Yeah, it's honey on the label, so it must be the same.
Yeah, okay. It's Coca-Cola, but it's not Coca-Cola.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I have about 500 mini plus hives, and we can do some sort of pre-testing there with them, and then we put them into production hives. So we're quite sort of satisfied with what we had. The conditions in Cyprus are very tough. Okay, a lot of people in Europe think it's a beekeeping paradise, and that it's not. Especially in the area where I live, in the far east of Cyprus. Okay, it's very near to the Middle East. Syria is only 80 kilometers away from my house, and the average annual rainfall is 350 millimeters, but in some weak winter years we only have 150, and there's nothing. Okay, it can be very serious, and sometimes the droughts go on for a couple of years, like in 2004, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we had a drought for 4 years. Okay, and at one stage towards the end of the drought, it didn't rain at all for 15 months. We had no rain at all, or we had just some light rain and it just evaporates. So conditions are tough, and we say that when we have hives that do very well under these conditions, it's like a natural selection. And so when the bees are sent to places where there's like canola, and when there's a lot of ground moisture, and the climate is more temperate, then they're having good results. For us, the Buckfast bee is the best bee. Okay, I'm not saying that because.
Have you tried any other bees?
Yeah, every year we get bees from other people. Most of the time anonymously, so they don't know that we're getting them. Okay, they're purchased by a third person, and we don't have such good results with them. If we could find better bees, we'd be using them. For us, this is the best bee for us. Yeah. Maybe those queens in the place that we brought them from are okay and doing well. When they come close to us,
not so well.
It's not so well because it's really tough.
Yeah.
It's surrounded by agricultural land, mostly potatoes and wheat. And in the village there are about 700 beehives. It's near the coast. And we can see that over the years that other beekeepers around us, their bees have changed and have become better, more docile, and they're having better results.
No more gloves. No more gloves.
No more gloves. I mean, I don't very often wear a bee veil.
Yeah, I mean the other beekeepers.
Because, the bees have quietened down. Okay, whereas in the past, in the surrounding villages, when they used to go and take off the honey, everybody had to stay inside. They had to put the dogs inside and the chickens because the bees were just stinging everybody. And the bees that we had sort of 45 years ago in Cyprus, they were extremely aggressive and problematic. We could be working the bees here and they would be going and stinging people that are 500 or 600 meters away. We couldn't actually see the people, but we could hear them shouting because the bees were attacking them. And they were nothing to do with beekeeping. They were picking up potatoes and that. And they're dangerous, because I mean the people can be allergic, and if they can have an anaphylactic reaction and actually die from this. It's extremely serious. And we had cases where in the one case where they stung a cow, not our bees, but somebody else's bees. They stung a cow to death, and the beekeeper had to pay for the cow. And another situation where there was a hunter, and his dogs were near the hives, and when the dogs were attacked by the bees, the dogs came running to the hunter, and of course the bees were following them, and they stung the hunter, and he had an anaphylactic shock and then died. And this ended up in a court case from the hunter's family. They took the beekeeper to court, but of course it couldn't be proven, okay, because the court needs actual evidence to convict somebody. So, it couldn't actually be proven that the bees that stung him were from those hives. So, they need to be careful. Beekeeping should be pleasurable. Huh?
I know.
You shouldn't have to get dressed up with gloves and putting masking tape around
around the gloves
and around your boots.
Yeah, I've done that.
And wearing hats inside the veil and everything, and double trousers. And, forget it.
I know that a lot of honey producers in Cyprus use your queens.
Yeah.
How much honey your bees produce on average, in other beekeepers and in your hives as well?
They say the average beekeeper is producing between 10 and 12 kilos a year. We've had years which have been not so good. We were having 40 or 50 average.
So in compare where in years when other beekeepers get 10 to 15, you get around 40. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes even more.
Okay.
The highest production ever was 150 about.
And from
that was just from one hive. Okay. But in the area where I am, there were a lot of orange trees before, but because of problems with water supply, they had to cut them down because there's been a tremendous increase in tourist facilities, hotels, restaurants, and all that. So they needed to take the water for the tourism industry, which is bringing millions to the economy every year. So conditions are even more tough now than what they were in the past.